Not all records are created equally. In all of our NFL rankings videos, we include a deeper explanation of C-score in the description, and those are the final words of that description. So while two records may be the same, the manner in which they are achieved are not always the same. We're going to go exploring here, and using C-score, we will be listing both the best and the worst teams at every win total in the Super Bowl era. Kinda. We're sticking to the 16-game schedule that was in use for the vast majority of the Super Bowl era, from 1978 to 2020, with the exception of the 9-game schedule from 1982, which is being completely ignored. In the event that a team from outside the 16-game schedule would have ranked as the best or the worst, we will give them a mention. Thank you for joining us today. Let's get on with it. We'll start with all the teams that have won 16 regular season games, and, well, there's only one, simultaneously ranking as the best and the worst 16-0 team of all time, the 2007 New England Patriots and their 49.893 C-score. While the 07 Patriots don't rank out as the single greatest team in the Super Bowl era, they do rank out as having had the single greatest regular season in the Super Bowl era. That wasn't enough though, because the playoffs happened, and their path to true immortality was stymied in Super Bowl 42 against the New York Giants, only a so-so team, preventing them from reaching the absolute top of the mountain. There are 6 teams to choose from in the 15-win realm, but the easy choice for number 1 are the 1985 Chicago Bears with their 52.163 C-score. Trailing at the bottom, nearly 30 points behind, are the 2004 Pittsburgh Steelers. The 85 Bears are, simply put, C-score's highest ranked team, period. 13 out of their 15 wins were attained by multiple possessions before they went on a rampage in the playoffs on their way to a dominant win in Super Bowl 20. The 2004 Steelers found their way to a lot more close victories, needing 6 by 1 possession, but where they fail in C-score is in the playoffs. Whereas most teams at this high level enhance their resume in the playoffs, this team simply did not, barely skating by in the divisional round before going down in the AFC title game. We have 22 teams in the 16-game era to choose from with 14 wins, but this was also an easy pick for the top. The 1991 Washington Redskins with a C-score of 51.467. With just about 1/3 the C-score of the Redskins at the worst end of the spectrum are the 2020 Kansas City Chiefs. The 91 Redskins were an amazing team, winning all 9 of their games that were decided by multiple possessions, leading the league in scoring while ranking second in points allowed, on their way to their Super Bowl 26 victory. The 2020 Chiefs needed 8 one-possession victories in order to achieve their record, and in the midst of the ridiculous 2020 season, were one of the few teams who consistently allowed fans, perhaps enhancing that record. But they only had 10.5 Pythagorean wins and came up short in Super Bowl 55. We've come upon the 13-win club, of which there are 53 teams, yet we have another easy pick for the top spot, the 1996 Green Bay Packers at a 45.522 C-score, although the 1968 Baltimore Colts did score higher in a 14-game schedule. The worst team from this group are the 1999 Tennessee Titans at under 8.5. A team that was beaten out by the 2022 Minnesota Vikings in a 17-game schedule. From this point, anytime a team is listed with an asterisk, it means they performed better or worse in a non-16-game schedule. The 96 Packers were a sight to behold, even if they don't get their due credit, similar to the 91 Redskins. 11 of their 13 wins were by multiple possessions, and they pulled off the incredibly difficult trick of leading the league in both points scored and points allowed on their way to victory in Super Bowl 31. The 1999 Titans needed to win more than half of their games by a single possession, but they made it to Super Bowl 34 and damn near won it. But their way of getting there, the Music City Miracle, and their singular mastery of the Jacksonville Jaguars does not obscure a very weak point differential for a 13-3 team at just plus 68. 87 teams have won 12 games in a 16-game schedule, and the best of these were the 1979 Pittsburgh Steelers, with a C-score at 36.289. The bottom of this list are the 1991 Detroit Lions, barely managing to scrape by a C-score of 5. The 79 Steelers won their 4th Super Bowl in 6 seasons, beating the Rams in Super Bowl 14, and they did it with more offense than defense this time around. They were still great defensively though, finishing 5th in points allowed while they led the league in scoring. The 91 Lions won the in-transition NFC Central Division while going undefeated in one-score games and only sporting a plus 44 point differential. They made it to the NFC title game, where they were summarily blasted by the Redskins, and until the 2023 season, this was the last time that Detroit had won a playoff game. 107 teams have won 11 games, and for the first time, the best of the bunch is not a Super Bowl champion. The 2012 Seattle Seahawks with a C-score pushing 29. A Super Bowl champion did perform better in a 14-game season, the 1969 Chiefs. The worst of the bunch comes from the same 2012 season, the Indianapolis Colts, sporting our first negative score of minus 8.176. The Seahawks were brought down by a slow start and a 5-5 record in one-score games, all against a top 5 schedule. They won a road playoff game before falling in the divisional round, but their positive 167-point differential was telling, and they certainly proved their worth the following season. The Colts also had 10 one-score games that season, but they won 9 of them against the league's easiest schedule. In fact, only 6 teams in the entire AFC had a winning record. They were exposed by the Ravens once they made the playoffs. Get used to seeing the Colts, they'll be back a few more times. A full 139 teams have won 10 games, but the best of the bunch in a 16-game schedule are the 2010 Green Bay Packers. Green Bay cleared 30 in C-score, but the 2016 Miami Dolphins, at the same 10-6 record, are the worst here, dipping underneath a -4. The Packers may have entered the playoffs as a 6 seed, but they were 6-0 in games decided by multiple possessions. They played a top 10 schedule, and they had the second best point differential in the entire league at plus 148. That 6 seed didn't matter much, as they exited Super Bowl 45 with the Lombardi Trophy. The Dolphins, on the other hand, played a bottom 5 schedule and got 80% of their wins by a single possession. Their negative 16-point differential isn't too egregious, but like the Colts before them, they were quickly exposed in a lopsided playoff loss, this one against the Steelers. The win totals are shrinking, but the number of teams are growing. Of the 142 teams with 9 wins, the best are the 2005 San Diego Chargers. They missed the playoffs, but they were bested by a Super Bowl champion, the 9-4-1 1967 Packers. Their C-score cleared 21. The Colts are back with a team we've looked at before, the 1992 squad with their horrific -16+ C-score. This Charger team won 6 games by multiple possessions against the league's hardest schedule. They finished 5th in scoring and had a plus 106 point differential, yet they still missed the playoffs. The Chargers are gonna Charger. The Colts in 1992 though? Yikes. 6-1 in one-score games, a bottom 5 schedule, a -86 point differential, and they won their final 5 games by a combined 20 points to end up with that fluky winning record. In retrospect, that negative 16 C-score actually seems a little kind. Mediocre in name, 146 teams snagged 8 wins, and the best of them were the 2006 Jacksonville Jaguars with a C-score over 16, truly remarkable for a 500 team. The worst? It's the Colts once again, this time from 2015, doing more than 30 points worse than the Jaguars in C-score. Check out the numbers on this Jags team. 6-1 in multiple possession games, 8th hardest schedule, 9th in points scored, 4th in points allowed, 5th in point differential. They scored 30 plus points 5 times, including 40 plus twice, and they allowed single digit points 4 times, including 2 shutouts. Incredible that they were only 8-8. It's also incredible that this particular Colts team went 8-8. Only 1 win by multiple possessions, a bottom 12 schedule, a negative 75 point differential, 172 points worse than the Jaguars, while finishing bottom 10 in both points scored and points allowed. Over a 2-game stretch, they allowed 96 points. Just laughable all around. We've entered the loser's edge. 144 teams have won 7 games. The best of these are the 2004 Kansas City Chiefs, with a C-score just above the single digits, only slightly outdone by the 500 1972 Vikings. At the bottom is a fairly well-known team, the 2010 Seattle Seahawks, with a truly abysmal negative 21 in C-score. The 04 Chiefs were snake-bit in 1-score games, only going 3-7, all against the 6th hardest schedule in the league. This team was all about offense, finishing 2nd in the league in scoring, putting up 40-plus points 4 times, with 1 game at 56 points. If only they had any kind of defense. The 2010 Seahawks lost 9 games by multiple possessions. Yep, that's all their losses. This against the 3rd easiest schedule in the league. Yet they won their division and they won a playoff game on the backs of the famous Beastquake. We've covered that game before, but this team hasn't gotten quite enough attention from this channel. We're still here into triple digits. 114 teams have won 6 games, with the best being the 1999 Denver Broncos, keeping their C-score above water at 5.032. Holding the bottom spot are the 2012 Tennessee Titans, with their full house looking C-score of negative 22.777. The Broncos entered 1999 as the 2-time defending Super Bowl champions. Down a few key pieces, they couldn't overcome an 0-4 start, but they took 8 losses by a single possession against the league's hardest schedule and were only outscored on the season by 4 points. Many thought they would make our list of worst defending Super Bowl champions, but these numbers here are why they did not. The Titans, on the other hand, were outscored by 141 points against a bottom 10 schedule. The 4 teams below them in point differential combined for a 12-52 record, averaging half of the Titans' win total. In fact, they were once beaten by 48 points. The 5-win plateau was our final stop with triple-digit teams to choose from. Of these 101 teams, the best are the 2016 San Diego Chargers, with a C-score of negative 2.224. But compare that to the worst 5-win team, the 2010 Arizona Cardinals, cratering out at nearly negative 30. More Chargers chargering. They win a scarcely believable 4-9 in 1-score games, including 4 by 3 points or less. They were only outscored on the season by 13 points, all of this against the league's 7th hardest schedule. The 2010 Cardinals took 8 losses by multiple scores against the league's 2nd easiest schedule. Just 2 seasons removed from a Super Bowl appearance, their minus 145 point differential was only bested by the horrible 2-14 Panthers that actually beat the Cardinals that season. 93 different teams have only scrounged 4 wins, but the best of them was pretty recent, the 2020 Atlanta Falcons, with a stunningly high negative 1.53 C-score. The Cardinals are the worst again, this time from 2003, with a C-score nearly 30 points worse than Atlanta's. Atlanta went 2-8 in one-score games against the league's hardest schedule. Head coach Dan Quinn was fired after an 0-5 start, and with Raheem Morris as the interim coach, they went 4-7 with a plus 21 point differential. Incidentally, Morris is now back in the saddle for Atlanta. The 0-3 Cardinals happened to be tied for the worst record in the league this season. The other teams sported negative 128 and 144 point differentials. Arizona clanged out a minus 227, all while finishing last in the league in both points scored and in points allowed. And all of their wins were by a single possession. We're down to a pool of 41 teams, all with a paltry 3 wins. The best of these were the 1983 New York Giants with a 3-12-1 record. If you're looking for a team that didn't have any ties, next on the list would be the 1997 Indianapolis Colts. The Cardinals, once again, bring up the rear with the 2000 edition. The Giants managed a negative 8.6 C-score, while the Cardinals flirted with negative 40. In Bill Parcells' first season as head coach, the Giants were building something in 1983 despite their record that still sported a better point differential than the 7-win Baltimore Colts of the same season. Within 3 years, the Giants were on top of the NFL mountain. The 2000 Cardinals, sorry to say, were just trash, taking 10 losses by multiple possessions. They were doubled up on during the season, being outscored 443 to 210. They were last in points allowed, second to last in scoring, and they ended the season by losing their last 7 games by 134 points, just over 19 points per game. 34 teams have managed just 2 victories in a single season. The best were the 1981 New England Patriots, whose negative 12.42 C-score is still better than the 9-7 1992 Colts. Speaking of the Colts, here they are again, from this same 1981 season, in the same division as the Patriots, putting up a C-score of negative 39.138. At 2-14, the Patriots were only outscored on the season by 48 points, buoyed by 16 and 28-point wins. They also took a 1-point loss, 2 2-point losses, and 2 overtime losses. All this added up to an 0-8 record in one-score games. The Colts' point differential was minus 274, 226 points worse than the Patriots, and more than 100 points worse than anyone else in the league. To this day, this still has to rank as the worst defense in the entire Super Bowl era, allowing 533 points during a drastically different era. The tremendous irony here is that their 2 wins were both against New England to open and close the season by 3 total points. Only 11 NFL teams have taken home exactly 1 win in a 16-game season. The best is the team that inspired this list, the 2000 San Diego Chargers, with their negative 23.56 C-score. It was a battle for the worst, but it goes for a 5th time to the Colts franchise. This from the 1991 Indianapolis Colts and their may as well be negative 55 million C-score. In our video of the worst team from every franchise in the free agency and salary cap era, I suggested the 2000 San Diego Chargers were probably one of the better 1-win teams in NFL history. I then got this comment from Alex Weinstock 943, and then I got this future comment from Tyler Turnage. so this had to get done. Thank you for those suggestions, and indeed, this Charger team barely got by the 2007 Miami Dolphins, mostly on the strength of the league's hardest schedule, and only the 4th worst point differential that season. The 1991 Colts are the worst team in the 16-game era. Yes, even worse than winless teams. They scored fewer than 9 points per game and were outscored 381 to 143 against the bottom 5 schedule. They lost 12 games by multiple scores, and are, alongside the 2010 Carolina Panthers, the only teams in the Super Bowl era to lose that many multiple score games without a single such victory. Just for fun, we'll quickly peek at the 2 teams who have gone 0-16. The Browns were better than the Lions in C-score by about 4 points, but the fact that either of these teams went winless is simply a fluke. Yeah, they're bad teams, but there have been many worse than them who just so happened to pick up a win or 2. Thank you so much for joining us today and for making it this far into the video. Be sure to give it a like and some shares, and if you haven't already done so, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and ding the bell for all future notifications. As mentioned earlier, this video was inspired by the comments section, so if you have any ideas for future ranking videos, please feel free to share those. Any thoughts on this video are also highly welcomed. Did you agree or disagree? Am I a genius or am I a moron? Sound off to your heart's content. Thank you again for joining us, and until next time, I hope you have an awesome day.